That's right, a video where we're not talking about Sonic Movie 3. Hey, what's up everyone, it's me, SpeedSuperSonic, here. Here's another video in this video today. That is right, not a Sonic Movie 3 video, we're actually talking about a video game for once. I know, it's crazy. I genuinely can't tell you the last time we made a video where it wasn't movie related in the slightest. I would not be surprised if it's been genuinely, like, months. But I'm happy to be back talking about something a little different for once, and that's because we actually have started leak season for Sonic new game. I was just about to say Sonic Movie 3, that's how locked in I've been. If you guys aren't aware, a while ago, if it wasn't already obvious at that point, Sonic Frontiers 2 is going to be happening, or at least a sequel to Sonic Frontiers. I'm still pretty confident in the fact that the game will be called Sonic something different subtitle. I don't think it's going to be called Sonic Frontiers 2, but definitely a game that has that same gameplay style and that follows in the footsteps of that. A sequel of sorts, and that's supposedly what we're getting. I think Daniel RPK confirmed that along with some other leakers who probably just piggybacked off of what he had to say, but we kind of knew that that was going to be happening. It has been a few months since that was announced. I want to say like around 4 or 5 months at this point, and I would say that we've been waiting for updates in regards to it, but I don't really think we have been because there's so much other stuff to be occupied by, such as Sonic Movie 3, Sonic X Generations, and whatever Sonic games or projects come up after the fact. I am pretty confident that Sonic Frontiers 2 is still very, very far away. So surely there isn't going to be any like official updates or information in regards to it, but that doesn't mean that leaks aren't going to happen, because Sonic Frontiers, when that was first teased and announced like months before, the game was leaked on 4chan of all places, which kind of was a laughing stock for memes, like, oh, all this stuff is fake, when a lot of the leaks that were out on 4chan so happened to be very real in regards to Sonic Frontiers, or the working title at the time, Sonic Rangers. And that's exactly what we have today. 4chan leaks. Now, of course, the leaks should be put in quotations, as these are not confirmed by any means, and those same ones that we mentioned that were at a later point verified on 4chan for the first Sonic Frontiers didn't happen until the game was actually out and we could do some comparing and contrasting and see that they were being legit. So there's no way of verifying these, so everything you're about to hear you should take with a massive grain of salt. None of this is confirmed, but unfortunately at this point, 4chan has some new legitimacy to it when it comes to Sonic game leaks. So this Twitter account called Neff_216 put together a bunch of screenshots of a few different 4chan posts talking about Sonic Frontiers 2 and some info in regards to it. So I haven't seen any of this yet. We're going to be discovering it together, breaking it down, seeing what's going on, if I vibe with what these supposed decisions are, and also if we believe that this is real in any sense. So let's dive into the first screenshot right here. I have an insider who has a lot of info on Sega IPs and their current development status. I've been able to see footage of several in-dev Sega projects, JSR, which I believe is Jet Set Radio, P6, Persona 6, and a Chow game. So guys, I'm not that well versed in the other Sega stuff, so bear with me. I'll share what I currently know about the new open world Sonic, since I am also a fan, lol. Working title is Frontiers 2. That's interesting. Like we said, that's kind of the assumed title right now. Game is developed by Morio Kishimoto, with virtually the entire team returning from Frontiers. Some new staff from previous Boost games are returning as game designers. Kishimoto's team has effectively doubled in size after Frontiers' success in Japan. Sega is trying to maintain AAA output with the open world format and Sonic Team's future releases, so polish and quality are the forefront. Game began conceptualization shortly after Frontiers' release and began full-scale development in October of 2023 after the last DLC was released. Before we continue, I just want to say that that is very nice to hear. I heard a lot from Morio Kishimoto about them using kind of Sonic Frontiers, the Final Horizon, or these updates really in general, as a way of being able to see what they're able to do with Frontiers 2 and work on different things and try different things so they can implement that earlier on into the process of Frontiers 2, which is very nice to see, and very happy that if this is true that they got right into the development of Frontiers 2 right when they wrapped Final Horizon, so that's great. Only on current-gen consoles, PC, and Switch 2, no legacy Switch release, so that's interesting. Cyberspace will be returning in some way, but will be following similar design philosophies to TFH, only one giant island, which sounds very interesting. Of course, we know in Sonic Frontiers 1 there was a handful of islands. Really 4 main fleshed out ones and then one like extra, I forgot the name of it, but it was just like essentially an open field. So if they do one island, I'm interested in seeing how large that's going to be, because they essentially, in my opinion, would have to combine like all of the sizes of what was in Frontiers into just one spot in order to compensate for not having other islands. So I want to see what that's going to be like and how in-depth they're going to be with it. And also the fact that they're doing islands again is interesting. So let's see what they have to say. Footage from Open Zone suggests that they are attempting a less realistic art style. The environment the player was exploring was a lot like Angel Island Zone, and there were some subterranean areas. Interesting. I liked hearing that. That's a good thing. Environments are not finished at all. Shit ton of placeholders and assets reused since it's early. Okay. There are NPCs in what looks like villages from what I saw. Other areas were filled with enemies which could attack said villages. Every inhabited area had some level of platforming. That is interesting to hear. One of my complaints-ish thing with Sonic Frontiers is that just the worlds and areas, now granted I know like this is an abandoned ancient island of Starfall Islands, but it just like didn't feel lively enough, and I'm hoping that with this new area that they're doing, if this is some kind of island or something entirely different that they're doing with an open zone or borderline open world at this point, that having like NPCs and villages and all these different areas is going to be a way of fleshing out the world and making it feel more like lived in and active and lively. Combat looks virtually unchanged from Frontiers, so we'll see how that comes out in the final game. I know a lot of people are going to want some changes made to the combat. I wasn't like a hater of the combat in Frontiers, but there's definitely stuff that can be fleshed out there. There's a boost like Frontiers, but it is not the main way to go fast. It's only really useful at slower speeds to launch you forwards. Conserving momentum is key, so that's interesting. The game has been in full development for less than a year, so not a lot is finished, and what is primitive. It is jank, but not in the same way as Frontiers. Very early footage though. Expect a late 2026 release, possibly 2027, short teaser mid 2025, so that's going to be a very promising thing. If it is a release in 2026, I think that's a very good spot for it. I think 2027, people might start getting impatient. We know how Sonic fans can be, but if we have like enough content, enough games coming out in the meantime, I would think that will hold people over, and especially if we get a teaser like next year, mid next year, that'll definitely be enough to keep people, you know, like satiated for a little bit. Remember, the wait from Forces to Frontiers was like 5 years, so if we're looking at 2026, that's like around 1 year less, and 2027 we'd be looking at roughly the same amount of time. So that's the end of that slide, but something to note is that this post was made on July 11th of this year, and this next one that we're going to be looking at was made on the 5th of this month that we're currently in right now, so let's take a look at what they have to say. Lucky to have an insider who can provide me with Sega info. The Sonic dev footage has also been floating around the company. I saw roughly 12 minutes and already know a bit of dev info about this game. Working title for this game is Sonic Frontiers 2, directed by Mario Kishimoto. That lines up with this previous report. Now, of course, this person who's making this could be just like taking the info that this previous person did and just putting out there now. We'll see, but of course this does line up, so we'll see what else they have to say. Game has been in full development since a couple months before the final Horizon release, so that a little bit contrasts. AAA dev size, which is very nice. We actually heard about that. This is not new information that Sonic Team has gotten much larger since Sonic Frontiers. Of course, that's going to happen with the success of that game. It scored pretty well when it came to critics, not like spectacularly, but it did solid enough. And of course, more importantly to Sega than anything is the fact that Sonic Frontiers sold very well, becoming the highest grossing 3D Sonic game of all time, which is a massive feat to accomplish. So, set on a floating island called Summit Spear, so there's some new information. As you can imagine, it's related to Angel Island, but it's on top of another bigger grounded island. The main island floats via a digitalized version of the Master Emerald. Sounds a little fanficky, we'll see. Map is way bigger than any island in Frontiers. Movement is drastically different as well. Camera is closer to Sonic but goes further as you gain speed. It is very dynamic but also very clunky. Obviously very early in development and the game is buggy, but seemingly the combat remains unchanged. Almost same exact moves as Frontiers. That's another thing that lines up with this previous thing. A good bit of the map is kind of like Green Forest. There's a kingdom area and also an area that resembles Sky Sanctuary but blue. I'm pretty sure they're using assets from Sonic X SG, which is Sonic X Shadow Generations, Kingdom Valley. There's not a single area in the game that looks even halfway finished. There are portals underground that are presumably cyberspace. I know for a fact that cyberspace is in the game, and I'm guessing this is it. Villages with live NPCs. It's kind of like Minecraft pillager raids, where sometimes you have to save the village for a reward. No humans. So that's another thing that lines up. So We'll see if they're actually subterraneans. I want that so bad. But the other stuff does sound interesting. Psyloop is a returning feature. That was a very fun aspect of Frontier, so I'm glad to see that coming back. The gimmick of the game is the Surge ability, which is basically the boost, but way faster, and is used to gain crazy momentum, doesn't last long, and has to be changed up with rings, kind of like a regular boost. And then just a simple thing that says momentum. So we heard one of the biggest critiques, not only when Sonic Frontiers released, but even before the game came out, was the note from fans that, yo, there's not a whole lot of momentum in this game. One of the best aspects of like those early 3D Sonic games, such as the adventure games and stuff like that, is the momentum that you're able to build. You can even see that in some of like the boost games, like I think Generations is a good example of that sometimes. People want to see that. I like that, and it's very fun, and I think Sega heard that. It was definitely, in my opinion, there were critiques in Frontiers, and maybe some that aren't coming to mind that were louder, but momentum definitely was one of the loudest critiques of people being like, we want this back, and we want this, and would have made Sonic Frontiers even better. So if they're really doing that, that is amazing to hear, clearly. I know that the director for Unleashed is returning this time just as a game designer, and some peeps from Color/Generations are back in similar roles. That is awesome. We knew that a lot of those people who worked on those better designed Sonic games left for, I believe, Nintendo roles and stuff like that. So if they have the money to bring them back, if they have the dev size to bring them back, that is of course great to hear. And then their last thing right here says pop in. Sega is giving Sonic Team the resources to match their confidence in the future of Sonic. So that is that slide. And then there's this next slide, which isn't as long, but this is an interesting thing too. I don't believe I see a date here, but let's take a look. The next mainline Sonic game is projected to be a light continuation of Sonic Frontiers. You won't need to play Frontiers to understand it, but some plot points will transfer over. Only the basic plot points are established right now, and Sega higher-ups are very, very involved. We're getting into plot stuff here, so this is going to be very determining of if this specific post, which I don't believe is from either of the past two people who posted. This could be its own thing. We'll see if this is fanfiction or not. Eggman and Sage visit an isolated island that secretly houses a digitalized version of the Master Emerald that has been deactivated for centuries. It has a name, but it has been kept secret from my insider. Interesting. Suddenly activated, which summons all the Chaos Emeralds, the island shoots up into the sky like Angel Island and basically traps all the residents. These are the Meso people. Sonic and Tails track the Chaos Emerald readings and go over. The plan is to stop Eggman from harnessing the power of the digitalized Master Emerald, and Sonic has to find the Chaos Emeralds. Endgame is planned to be like Unleashed, with a proto-Eggman land being built on the island. The game ends with Sage leaving Eggman's side after witnessing his evil and going about life her own way. So, interesting. Here's the lore. This aspect might change entirely. Okay. The island is called the Summit Sphere. The Meso people of the island were in direct conflict with the ancients who created the digitalized Master Emerald before they came to Earth. Pretty much confirmed this is what they were using before they came to Earth. Basically, the remaining ancients who lived on Angel Island kicked out the people who originally lived there and sent them to Summit Sphere. In revenge, they stole the digitalized Master Emerald and nearly fully wiped out the ancients. Recognizing the history of war, the Meso swore to deactivate the digitalized emerald forever. Fundamentally, it's a story about whether it's correct to limit someone else's freedom for your own. I don't particularly like Ian Flynn, but he does have more involvement beyond script writing this game. I don't know how I feel about that last one. There's some stuff that lines up with stuff that we've heard from those past two chunks from the 4chan things that people made. I'm not saying to believe in any of this. All of this can be complete BS. A lot of stuff lines up in those first two, including stuff in regards to the Master Emerald and villagers and people and all of that. The last thing that we read, though, I don't know how much I would choose to believe that, and I also don't know who that's from, but yeah, it just sounds a little bit fanfiction-y, and there's all of that. I'm sure with all this reading, this has been long enough. I like what I'm hearing. Once again, I'm not choosing to say yes or no to whether this is real or not. I'm just saying to take it with a grain of salt. I thought this was interesting enough to talk about, and I want to talk about Sonic Frontiers 2. It sounds like a game, from what they're describing, that's very early in development, which isn't surprising, and I'm liking the things I'm hearing. Nothing here is particularly blowing me away. There's no crazy info here that is too out of the realm of possibility. All this stuff could very well become true, but regardless, I'm very excited for this game, and this does sound interesting. But this is where I pass it off to you guys and ask what you think. What do you think about this news and like leaks coming out of 4chan for Sonic Frontiers 2? Does this make you excited excited about it, but more importantly, do you believe it or do you not? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to know what you guys have to say. Feel free to follow my social media links, my Twitter and Instagram description below. You can follow this basically my life. You're trying to handle things Sonic the Hedgehog, but most importantly, if you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed. This is the number one station on YouTube for all things Sonic. Whether it's video games, movies, comics, merchandise, and more, we talk about it all. If you're looking forward to support the channel, become a channel member, and you can join our Patreon. But guys, we have so much content on the way. There's a bunch of Sonic Movie 3 stuff we have on the way to you guys very soon. Sonic X Shot Generation is right around the corner next month. There's so much happening. I love all of you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.
And be right by the motherfucking seaside, dog. Everything I see, I got a dream. I thought these leaves would go and take me out the dark. I know everything I wanted to far away.